If you read a logical reasoning stimulus and by the time you reach the conclusion, you've already forgotten the first sentence, that's not a logic problem, that is a focus problem. And right now, focus is the biggest score lever on the LSAT. With logic games off the test, what's left is pure reasoning. You've got dense reading comp passages, arguments with rather subtle assumptions, and answer choices that differ by only one word from each other, like most versus many, or likely versus certain, or some versus all. If your attention drifts for even a few seconds, you're going to miss that. And we're living in the most attention fracturing environment in history. You've got short form video on TikTok and Instagram. You've got infinite scroll. You get notifications on your phone every couple of seconds, and AI that explains everything instantly. Your brain has been trained and wired for novelty, but the LSAT rewards endurance, and those are polar opposites. Have you ever opened a reading comp passage, read the first paragraph, and realized you have no idea what you just read? So you reread it, and then halfway through, your brain drifts. You have dinner, a text, something random pops up, you get to paragraph 3, and none of it stuck. It's not because you're not smart enough, it's because your brain has been conditioned to avoid cognitive friction. And scrolling has zero friction. TikTok has zero friction. AI has zero friction, but the LSAT is nothing but friction. The LSAT's saying to you, hold this structure in your head, track the author's tone, note the concession, and evaluate 5 similar answers. All of that requires sustained attention, and sustained attention is now rare. And this, of course, will show up in your LSAT score. You're going to miss a quantifier word or a conditional trigger, or you'll forget a premise by the time you reach the answers. So you reread the passages over and over, you feel fatigued by question number 18, and that's attentional stamina. Stamina, the good news, is trainable. So the first thing you got to do is remove the distractions physically. Not just putting your phone face down or putting it on silent, you got to put it in another room. In your internet browser, have only one tab open at a time, no switching, no ChatGPT during the LSAT. You're doing 35-minute sections uninterrupted. At first, that'll feel uncomfortable, and that discomfort is your brain recalibrating the dopamine seeking. And most students quit during that window. If you push through it, though, something is going to shift around minute 25 or minute 30. Your brain is going to settle, and you'll actually start processing deeply. And that's where the points come from. I also want to talk about AI a little bit because I know a lot of folks are using it these days for pretty much everything. I want you to use it correctly. It's not necessarily the enemy. Passive thinking is the enemy. So if you get a question wrong, don't just ask AI for the explanation immediately. First, I want you to explain the argument out loud. What's the conclusion? What's the assumption? Why is your answer wrong? Then, if you use AI, tell it, don't give me the answer, but rather interrogate my reasoning. Make it challenge you. If you can't defend your answer verbally, you didn't understand it yet. The LSAT tests your reasoning, not your recognition of explanations. I also want you to rebuild your reading endurance. Every day, I want you to read at least 20 pages of dense nonfiction. Can't be on your phone. You can't have your phone nearby. You can't copy paste it into AI and ask it to summarize. You can't do any highlighting. Just pure reading, uninterrupted. Because reading comp is central. The entire test, you could argue, is a test of reading comprehension. And if you build real reading endurance, something interesting is going to happen. Your logical reasoning will improve also. You'll actually be able to hold the whole structure of the argument in your head at once. You won't need to skim anymore. And that will allow you to engage more analytically with what you read, and that alone could get you some points. Now let's zoom out for a second. The difference between a 160 and a 168 on the LSAT is not 8 questions. It could be tens of thousands of dollars in scholarship money, could be getting into better schools, could be getting more scholarship money, could set you up for an entirely different and better career trajectory, giving you more options upon graduating. And so if the bottleneck between you and that jump is focus, that's actually kind of exciting because you can train focus. You can't change your IQ in 3 months, but you absolutely can change your discipline, your attention, and your focus. Now, if you say you don't have time to build focus, but you spend an hour a day scrolling on social media, the issue isn't time, it's how you are prioritizing your time. I'm not saying you got to delete every app, and social media has its benefits, but I'm saying that while you're studying for the LSAT, your time matters. I want you to schedule distraction-free blocks on your schedule and expect it to feel difficult. Expect to experience some resistance to the idea. The first week of this is going to feel harder than it should because you're going to crave stimulation, and that's normal. But if you can get past that first week, you're going to get more clarity. And that's going to show up as fewer rereads on the LSAT. Your conditional reasoning is going to get a lot cleaner. You're going to be able to recognize flaws faster. You'll second guess yourself less because you were actually present when you were reading the text. Now, the students who break into the 170s usually have one thing in common that separates them from the rest. They can sit with a hard problem longer than everybody else, not because they're natural born geniuses, but because they can tolerate mental strain. And in a distracted world like we live in right now, that's pretty rare. So what you're fighting for here is not against AI or social media. You're just fighting for control of your own attention. And in the modern LSAT, the person who controls their attention controls their score. So that's what you want to train. And if you'd like my help training your focus, your ability to stay engaged with the LSAT for 35-minute sections, 4 of them back to back, I'm happy to help you out. I'm offering free LSAT tutoring lessons for everybody watching this now or later. The link to book that free tutoring lesson with me is unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below this video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and Instagram as well. That is an open offer for everyone watching this now or later. And if you find these lives helpful, I do them every single weekday, same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central, 11 Pacific, here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you're watching this. I see a ton of questions here in the chat. I'll get to as many of those as I can. Keep them coming, and I'll get to them as I can. All right, so I see here question from Zanahoria asking, I need to get rid of TikTok. More of a comment than a question. But yeah, I mean, the truth is that it may be doing you more harm than good at this point in your life right now if you're trying to train your focus. Again, it has benefits, of course. One middle ground you might have is to only segment it for certain hours of the day. Like you can only open the app between these days and these times. Or you're only going to engage in lives rather than short form videos because lives are, of course, longer in nature. They're not trying to do the same hooks and tricks to get you engaged and get your attention. There are plenty of apps that help you limit your use of certain apps to certain times for certain periods of time. So you might want to look into some of those as well. And so you're saying you have only 6 weeks left. So I'm guessing that you're taking the LSAT in April. The good news is you can improve your LSAT score significantly in just 6 weeks. The question is where and how do you devote your time? Are you drilling questions by type and neglecting full-length timed exams? Are you doing nothing but full-length timed exams, but you haven't yet built the foundation in the different sections and the different question types? Should you perhaps be focusing on certain particular weak areas like certain LSAT sections or certain LSAT question types? In logical reasoning, for example, you have roughly 15 different types of questions. Depending on how you slice and dice them, you've got, for example, in logical reasoning, strength and weak and flaw, necessary assumption, sufficient assumption, and so on. Then you've got reading comprehension, of course, which is an entire third of the test. You've then got your pacing and time management to work on, doing individual timed sections, working on where you flag and skip, where you slow down, where you speed up. And then, of course, you've got full-length timed exams to build up your endurance. And so every student should hit one of those phases of prep at some point. But the phase you should be focusing on right now is unique to you and depends on your weak areas and your struggles. And part of the issue with studying on your own is that you don't know what you don't know. You can't see your own blind spots. And